So last year, I had a realization that if I don't make some really specific decisions in my life about what I want to do and what I want to happen in my life, that another 10 years is going to like absolutely fly by and I'm not going to get anything done. And I'll be sitting there, 10 years from now saying, okay, I've done nothing in my life. Hi there, welcome. My name's Carrie, and welcome to my living room. I wanted to tell you the story of why and how I'm restarting my art and illustration career in my 50s, how I came to be where I am right now, including all of the failures and successes, and there's many different stories to tell you, and how I'm planning to create a full-time illustration art career in the next year or two. We'll see how long it takes. Getting into my 50s, it really kind of made me realize, okay, this is like the latter part of my life. Our girls are older now and they're out of school. My last daughter graduated from university, just was it last year. My other daughter just got married. And so it's kind of a time in my life now where I can focus back a little bit on myself and what I want to do for me. Because for many years now, I've made my family my focus, which I know many other people have as well. And when you do that, it's really hard to focus on the things that you want to do just for you. So, anyway, now is my time. There were a lot of years where I really didn't do any art. And for me as an artist, that's tough because I've always been drawing and painting. And so to have a few years where I really didn't do any art was really a big deal when I finally realized that I wasn't doing it, that it wasn't a part of my everyday life. It was just a tough realization, I think, for me to have. And so I decided that I need to change that. I did go to art school. And so my focus on art is very like commercial oriented. What I mean by that is that I want to be a working artist, basically, right? My goal right now is to make my income my everyday journey about art. Because I've worked in business a long time, I have a good idea around what I think I need to do to grow my art business. So I'm excited to really get into it all and finally just treat it like my own business. So I thought I would go back in time and tell you a little bit more about my own personal story, how I got to this point here right now, what my plans are for moving ahead. As I mentioned before, art has always been in my life. I've been drawing ever since I was a little kid. Art is a big part of my family life through generations. My mother's an artist, my nanny's an artist. It's always been something I've just loved to do. I would constantly go to my room as a kid and just draw for hours at a time. I loved it. In the small community I grew up in, we had a contest for a local festival that we had. We would do posters for like promoting the contest in our little town. And so all the kids in the school would design a poster and they'd have prizes and kids would win. And I absolutely loved doing that. Years and years later, I realized that I was always an illustrator at heart. Even as a kid, I was an illustrator doing these posters and coming up with the slogan and the sort of story behind the whole illustration and all of that. I went through school, took art. We only had like one art class. So it was pretty basic, but it was good. We had some really good art teachers there. I really enjoyed it. I also took Latin and English, which I love and adore. So I thought about kind of going into English at one time and doing some different things. But ultimately, in the end, I did not become a veterinarian and I did not go to school for English. I was encouraged by my art teachers at school that I would be able to maybe get accepted to the school that I really wanted to go to. I'm in Ontario, Canada, and so the school I wanted to apply to is called the Ontario College of Art and Design, and it's a very well renowned school in Canada, and especially in the commercial industry. And at that time in the 90s, it was really well respected. Knowing that I wanted to get into illustration, I decided to apply there. You at the time had to actually send in your application and then they would schedule an interview for you to come down to the school in downtown Toronto and show your portfolio. So I took the bus down, carried my portfolio and walked over to the school. I had to wait in this whole waiting area they had that was outside the auditorium. And I was so nervous. It was crazy. And went in there. It was a huge auditorium. They had all these tables set up. And they had, I think it was 3 people that interviewed me, 1 teacher and 2 alumni, I believe. And it was so nerve-wracking. and they had a little piece of paper and they're recording notes and stuff as they're going through my portfolio. Luckily for me, I had a pretty positive feedback during the interview, so that was really good. But it was still so nerve-wracking, and I had no idea if I'd get accepted or not, because at the time, I think they only accepted 150 new students every year because it was a fairly small school. And so it was nerve-wracking, and that's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to go to that school. So in the meantime, I'd taken a year off high school. I was managing a clothing store, and the clothing store actually closed down. I actually decided at the very last minute to go and take art at our local college. And so I was currently there. I'd started in January, and my interview was in May for OCA. So I'd done a couple months at that school just to sort of do something basically while I was waiting. But I really only wanted to go to OCA. I had decided if I didn't get accepted, I wasn't going to continue studying art. So I was probably going to apply at a university and take English. So anyway, I waited and waited and waited, and I had to wait for an acceptance or a non-acceptance letter to come by mail. And finally, one day it came in the mail, and it was a very thin letter. And I thought, oh my gosh, I didn't get accepted. So I took it up to my room and I opened it up by myself. And it said, "We're excited to accept you, blah, blah, blah." And I'll never forget that day. I was so elated. It was crazy. So that was a big accomplishment for me in my life at that point. And anyway, to get on with the story, I went to school down in Toronto that September, moved down there, started at OCA, and it was so fantastic. Just being immersed in that school with all of my peers. It's a very creative school. It was just fantastic. So I did my 4 years there and lived in Toronto and had a really great time at OCA. I really loved it. I ended up going into the C&D department, which was communication design. So that was for advertising, illustration, anything that was sort of working in the industry commercially. Oh, and also graphic design. So I took mostly illustration classes, and then also my electives were always fine art. So I always took figure drawing because that was one of my absolute favorite things to do. But it was really, really great. Mostly illustration. I minored in graphic design. And then in my 4th year at school, I was looking for another class to take that I thought was beneficial for me in my career. And they really didn't have anything that I hadn't already done or that I thought was going to be really helpful. And so what I ended up doing was I did like an independent study. I went to the school and I said, can I take a class with my favorite art teacher, who was Huntley Brown, a very talented illustrator. He was honest, straightforward. He understood the illustration industry. I knew he would tell me straight up what I needed to do. So I asked if I could create my own class independently and take it with him, because I'd already taken the courses that he taught at school. What I wanted to focus on was children's illustration, where I would create basically the curriculum for that year in that class, and I would work with him, or he would just give me feedback or whatever about what I was doing. And all I wanted to do in that class was final, professional, full illustrations for the children's book industry. And it was amazing. I loved it. It was fantastic. So that was really great. I'm very thankful that they allowed me to do that. I just had to write up a proposal, give that to them, and then I sat in on one of Huntley's other illustration classes and would work on my work and talk with him about it during that class. It was really fantastic. So if you're a student actually, or anybody that, wants to do something that's not the norm, figure it out and figure out what works best for you and see if you can do that. Nobody suggested that to me. I didn't know anybody that had done that, but I thought, this is what I need to do. So let's see if I can do it. And I did, and it worked out really great. I got a job working at a company at Bay and Bloor in Toronto. I worked there in the marketing department directly for the director of marketing for 3 years while I was at OCA or at OCAD. And it was really great. I got a lot of really valuable experience. And so when I graduated, they actually offered me a full-time job. So I decided at the time to take it and, work in marketing while I was sort of trying to get my illustration career going. In the meantime, I went around to some different publishing houses in different places, had a couple of interviews, had really great responses, said, yes, we'll give you some work. It was kind of getting my career going. And all around that same time, I was really struggling with living in the city because I grew up in the country. I only went to Toronto to go and study illustration. I wasn't intending to live there my whole life. I didn't want to climb the corporate ladder. And so I decided that I was going to move out west to BC. And so before I did that, there was an ad in the paper looking for a toy designer. And I thought, okay, well, I've never been a toy designer, but I'm an illustrator. So what can it hurt? I'm going to apply for it. And so I applied for this job and had an interview. It was a really great interview. And the woman hired me. It wasn't a full-time job. It was a contract illustration job. I quoted her. She gave me the first job and I did some illustration work for her. It was amazing. I loved it. I created basically a toy. It was a blow mold character that you would put out on your front lawn. After that, I moved out west, went out to Salt Spring Island actually, which has a really fantastic artist community there. And so I lived there. I worked freelance doing some illustration work for this company, doing the toy design work, and it was great. I really, really enjoyed it. Ended up meeting my husband and partner now, moved back to Ontario. And after my daughter was born, it was within the first year, I was off work. I had what I thought was all the time in the world, and it was really great. She was an easy baby. Everything went really well. I'm very lucky that way because I know that's not always the way. And then a crazy thing happened, and I had a call from a publisher. It was really exciting. So she called me. I talked to her. She said, I really love your illustrations. I love how you do your animals. We're really excited to work with you. We have a book that we think you'd be perfect for. I mean, this was like the call I'd been waiting for, and it was so exciting. And so I talked to her for quite a while. I forget if it was that phone call or a follow-up phone call we had that I had my daughter with me in the room. I had to go get her while I was on the phone. And she said to me, wait a second, do you have a baby? And I said, oh yeah, I have a baby. Like, on maternity leave, thinking this is great. It's really the perfect timing. And she said, well, she said, if you have a baby, she said, you won't have time to illustrate a book for us. And I said, no, actually, like I do have time. Like this is a really great time for me. I'm not working or anything. And she really like just shut me down. And she basically hung up and was gone. And I mean, in this day and age, someone would never do that. But this was 90s, like 98, I guess. It's a real shame. And it was so frustrating, just absolutely heartbreaking for me that that happened. Because not only did I have the time, my child slept a lot. I had a babysitter that I already had coming in for me part-time because I was doing other freelance work. And also, I work quite fast. Even though my illustrations are involved and detailed, I actually work quite quickly. And so I think I would have been able to get that done, for her probably fairly quickly and probably within the timeline that she needed, because what she also doesn't know is that I'm a very efficient, practical worker aside from how I work as an illustrator. Anyway, that was a really heartbreaking time for me. And I don't usually listen to what other people say or how they think about me or things I'm doing or what I think I'm capable of. But at this time I thought like, gosh, is she right about that? Like, do I have the time to be an illustrator? And I thought, no, I don't think she's right. And then we had our second daughter 2 years later, and life got really busy with two kids, a 2-year-old and a baby. And I thought, you know what? Maybe I don't have the time. And maybe I didn't have the time. Maybe I could have made the time. I made the time to go back to work. I made the time to be a partner. I made the time to see my family. I made the time to do a lot of other things in my life. And so I think I could have made the time for sure to pursue my illustration career. After my daughters went to school full time, I went back to working in business, and I was working in marketing for a few years. I was a general manager for a company. And in the meantime, while I was doing all this, I had started my own business where I was making some products and selling them online. And I did that for a lot of years. And then I also started kind of getting back into illustration a little bit. I had written over the years a number of different children's books. And so I really wanted to try and get some of those published. There was, I think, one or two that I sent out to a few publishing companies. I didn't really send it out a lot. And I didn't really try very hard to get my illustration career going. I didn't try and get an agent. I wasn't trying to really send out any of my other stories or any of my other illustrations because I was focusing on my other business and not really giving it the full-time attention that it needed to have. And then I just kind of let it sit again for a number of years while I was working on my own business. And so doing all of those things and kind of just living life, I've kind of found myself at a point a year ago where I was like, okay, all of a sudden it's just all clicked in my brain. And I said, I am not doing art full time. I'm not even doing my art on a regular basis. And I thought, what am I doing? Like I need to get back to that. And that's kind of where I come back to having this whole realization about a year ago that I wanted to get back to doing my art. So after having the realization, I thought, okay, how do I make having a career in art a reality now in my 50s? What do I need to do? And I stood back and I put my business hat on, really did a big overview of what I wanted to do with my art. I used some of the different techniques and things, that I've learned through business, and how could I make money and create revenue in an art business? Because traditionally in illustration, you would be making money through doing contract work, whether that was illustrating a picture book, writing it, illustrating spot illustrations for a magazine, or doing book covers for novels and books, or selling sort of like one-off things that I have to make money, rather than incorporating some passive income, other active income, and having various streams of income so that I know I've got continuous revenue coming into my art business. And so I got really excited when I started thinking about it as a business, because there's so much opportunity. And I had the clarity of, okay, this isn't just you as a single commercial illustrator working for other people. This is you as an individual business, as an entrepreneur, creating an entire business and a model and a strategy around making money as an artist, which in this day and age, there is so much more opportunity to do that as an artist than there was in the 90s when I graduated from art school, and even the years following that. And so things like starting a YouTube channel, having an Instagram for my art, building an audience, and offering different products online, that's something that I am just really excited about. I went and got this to show you some of the revenue streams that I have planned for the year, how I intend to grow my business and make money with it and all of that. And for the last few years, I've been getting like a blank bullet journal and creating my own planner, because I wanted it set up in a very specific way. In the beginning of this is all completely dedicated to building my art business. I have all different kinds of pages set up, trackers, planning pages, schedules. I have a personal log and a business log, my quarters for the year set up in here, my actions and my goals and things like that. But what I wanted to show you right now is a summary for starting my art business now in my 50s, because I have to be efficient. This page right here, I wanted to set up my revenue streams. I did it in this way that's sort of visually pleasing and very nice. It's one of the bonuses to setting up your own planner, is you can make it look very visually pleasing. I try to do it without taking too much time, but I have various different streams in here for my art business plan. They are personal projects, so things like I intend to do a Kickstarter or something like that eventually. I really want to do my own tarot cards, maybe some kind of an illustrated book. I'm going to be starting my own art shop, so I kind of have some plans set up for that. I'm going to be selling different products in there. I'm working on selling my artwork wholesale. And I have another video, the stationery part 1 video. I'll be working on the part 2, where I'm going to continue planning and showing some results and things like that as well. So that's pretty exciting. I will eventually start a Patreon, I think, and we'll be doing lots of art related things. I'll be probably doing some courses eventually and things like that. I think also because I do really love business. I'm not sure if I already spoke about this or not, but I love business and art, not quite equally, but very much in the same ways. And I know that might seem like a bit of a contradiction for people who look at artists, the stereotypical kind of artist, and think that, okay, well, an artist isn't good at business, an artist isn't good at math. Those are just stereotypes and they're not true. So I'll probably also incorporate some kind of business teachings in that for artists in here. That might be part of the community. We'll also do some things like live drawing sessions. I don't even know, all kinds of things. I'm going to be doing this YouTube channel. I'm going to have my Instagram. I'm going to be doing some sort of gallery art. I have an idea for a series that I'm really, really excited about doing. Maybe trying to get that out into some galleries. I want to be doing some other freelance work and possibly get an agent. I will be applying to some agencies in the future. So I'm really excited for that. And maybe I can get some of my books published or do some freelance children's illustration work, stuff like that. I might do some more art markets. I did a couple in the fall, and I have to say, it's so rewarding. It's the first time I realized in my life where I was actually in public with my art, and I had people coming up to me, giving me feedback in person about my artwork. And it was so fantastic. People are so kind, hearing what they loved and what they appreciated about it, what they were going to do with the things they were buying. And I mean, it was just so rewarding. I may continue to do some art markets, we'll see. So I have all of that listed on here. I'm going to be sharing how I'm doing it, my planning for it, the money side of it, when I'm going to do it, the methods I'm going to be using to do things. I'm going to be trying to do lots of artwork on this channel as well, and I'll be sharing it with you in all of these videos. So I'm pretty excited about all of that. So I hope that you enjoyed the video. I really appreciate you being here, and I'm super excited to see you in the next videos. And if you have any comments or ideas or thoughts about anything you want to see me do or say, artwork you want to see, just let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. So again, thanks so much for joining me. Have a wonderful day. Talk to you soon. Bye.